Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into a truly profound piece of poetry. We're looking at Auntie by the incredible Scottish poet and storyteller Nadine Aisha Jassat. Now, this isn't just your standard poem about a relative. It's actually this incredibly rich, sensory exploration of geographic roots, cultural inheritance, and how we forge our family identities when our lives literally span across oceans. If you've ever felt that instant, powerful connection to a family member just through a shared meal or maybe a quiet morning ritual, this is absolutely going to resonate with you.
Okay, let's dive into this. To really grasp the emotional weight of Auntie, we have to start with the speaker's foundation. As Jassat herself puts it, she's a child of multiple worlds. Growing up as a mixed-race kid, she learned pretty early on that society loves to try and put you into neat, predefined boxes. Her poetry? Well, that's her way of defining herself entirely on her own terms. And those multiple worlds we just talked about, they are vast. Her mother is Christian, hailing from Yorkshire in England, while her father is Muslim, originally from Zimbabwe. So right off the bat, we're looking at a massive geographic and cultural divide. The speaker's voice in Auntie is completely shaped by this intersection. It's all about navigating that tricky space between everyday life in the UK and this deep, ancestral pull toward family, faith, and heritage all the way over in Zimbabwe.
So here is how we're going to break this down. First, a child of multiple worlds. Second, form, structure, and senses. Third, cooking as cultural heritage. Fourth, tracing geography and home. And finally, sirens versus whispered duos.
Okay, starting off with Section 1, a child of multiple worlds. As we've established, Jassat's mixed identity is really the core of her connection to family. She's spoken in the past about how her father's stories of her aunt in Zimbabwe really taught her what it meant to be Muslim and what it meant to be family across such a massive physical gulf. I absolutely love this quote. She describes her connection to Islam and family practices as an inheritance of whispered words held like muscle memory. Think about that for a second. It isn't just something she was taught, it's felt. It's physically ingrained in her body. Keep that exact phrase, muscle memory, in the back of your mind as we look at how the speaker remembers their aunt.
Moving right along to Section 2, form, structure, and senses. Now, what's really interesting here is how the physical architecture of the poem is actually built.
Auntie is actually a wonderfully concise poem. It's just 12 lines in total, and it's divided up into 3 verses. The physical architecture she uses here is just brilliant. The first 2 verses are exactly 3 lines long, and each one focuses super cleanly on a single unified idea. The first verse is all about nurturing hands, and the second is about the concept of home. But then look at verse 3. It doubles in length to 6 lines, and the pacing just shifts entirely. It starts off fast and fragmented, kind of mimicking the rush of city life, and then it gracefully stretches out into these flowing, longer lines as the speaker recalls gentle morning prayers.
It is also really vital to note that this poem is written in free verse. That basically means there's no rigid, predictable rhyme scheme tying the words down. So why does that matter? Well, because memories don't usually arrive in perfect rhyming couplets, right? The free verse allows the speaker's recollections of their aunt to flow completely naturally. It sounds much more like an intimate conversation or just a sudden, organic flash of memory. Which brings us to Section 3, cooking as cultural heritage. Let's dig into the really powerful imagery right there in the very first stanza.
The poem opens up immediately with this vivid sensory imagery. We're introduced to the aunt's hands, which are described as soft and brown. Right away, we've got touch and sight, establishing this intimate physical closeness while bringing in themes of race and identity. Then we get the smell. They smell like cumin and coriander. These incredibly aromatic spices are deeply, deeply associated with African and Asian culinary traditions, so they instantly root the speaker in their cultural heritage. And notice, too, that it's written in the present tense. They smell. This isn't some distant, fading memory. The scent, and really the nurturing presence of the aunt herself, feel constant and completely alive.
And that brilliantly illustrates the aunt's role in the family. The text says, she is a gardener in the kitchen. It's a bit of a surprising juxtaposition, isn't it? I mean, you don't typically garden indoors. But think about what a gardener actually does. They cultivate. They patiently tend to things so they can grow. By comparing cooking to gardening, the speaker totally elevates domestic kitchen work into this profound act of life-giving nourishment and care.
Jassat actually elaborated on this in a BBC Bite-Size interview. She noted that when you chop fresh coriander, the smell practically springs to life. Cooking isn't just throwing together a meal. Like she says, it's the act of nourishment, of growing, of life. These shared recipes, passed down through generations, basically become a living garden. They're a way of staying deeply, tangibly connected to a heritage that might otherwise feel thousands of miles away.
All right, moving into Section 4, Tracing Geography and Home. As we step into the second stanza, a real sense of emotional and temporal distance starts to creep in.
I remember your skin, the way some people remember the bus route. This is such a fascinating simile. Think about a bus route for a second. It's mundane, it's everyday. It's something you know so instinctively you don't even have to use brain power to navigate it. By comparing the incredibly intimate memory of a loved one's skin to a daily bus route, the speaker is telling us that their knowledge of their aunt is completely ingrained. It's an instinctive, daily navigation.
The stanza then ends with a super powerful line, I know I need to trace it to go home. So what's the takeaway here? It's all about the multi-layered meaning of that word trace. It implies physical touch, like running a finger over someone's hand. It implies memory, retracing your steps back into the past. And crucially, it implies navigation, like tracing a line on a map. The aunt's skin, her very being, literally becomes the map that the speaker uses to find their way back to a true sense of home and cultural belonging.
Let's head over to Section 5, Sirens versus Whispered Duas. This is where we see the realities of the speaker's two worlds truly collide in the final stanza.
The contrast she builds here is just staggering. On one hand, you have the modern UK city life, entirely defined by the world of work, the blare of bus bells, and harsh alarm clocks. It's loud, it's an intrusion. But then, on the other hand, you have the ancestral sanctuary, the quiet 5 a.m. light waking gently to the sound of softly whispered duas. The harshness of the city completely melts away into this beautiful, warm morning ritual. Now, if you aren't familiar, a dua is an Islamic prayer. It's a very direct, personal communication with Allah, often used to ask for guidance or, which is really crucial here, to express love and care for someone who is separated by distance. Jassat has actually talked about the magic of knowing her aunt in Zimbabwe was making prayers for her. Just the thought that even separated by plains and oceans, the love inside that whispered prayer could still travel across the whole world and find her. It perfectly symbolizes the unbreakable thread of their family identity.
When we step back and look at the grand architecture of Jassat's poetry, we can clearly see how Auntie sits right at the intersection of identity, loss, memory, and relationships. The geographic divide between the UK and Zimbabwe is massive, right? And the hustle of the city is overwhelmingly loud. But through the vivid sensory memory of cumin and coriander and the quiet echo of those whispered morning prayers, the speaker ensures that their heritage and their identity don't just survive, they actively nourish them.
It's just a masterful demonstration of how cooking and prayer rituals symbolize cultural heritage and how everyday moments define who we truly are. So I want to leave you with this to ponder. When the sirens of your own daily life get a little too loud, what are the sensory memories, the family rituals, or the whispered words that you use to trace your own route back home? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this sparks some beautiful memories for you today.